Well, hello everyone, JW here, and welcome to the Australasia tour. In this episode, in case you haven't guessed already, we will be touring the mostly completed Australasia section of Dunswell Zoo. I say mostly completed. The Tasmanian devil habitats need a little bit of TLC, and there's a couple of graphics here and there that need adding. And maybe tweaking a little bit. Some of them are a little bit hard to read. And obviously if we get birds at some point or any sort of notable Australasian animals, then we may add them in the future as well. But for the time being, I do consider this area to be complete. All the animals are there that I wanted or planned for them to be there, so yeah. Second thing, I do currently have tonsillitis and ulcerated tonsils and fluid behind my ears. So if at any point my voice gives out during this video, please excuse that. I am on antibiotics, I am drinking plenty of fluids. It just is what it is, unfortunately. I feel fine, you know, there's no point in me putting off this video because I can't talk, because I can, it's just my voice will probably give out at some point. And the last thing to mention is, unlike the other tours that I've done in the past, where they've just been like music and cinematic shots, this one I'm going to walk you through everything, because there's methods here and different versions of habitats and things like that. So without any further delay, let's get stuck in. So we start here in the Continent Plaza. You can see we've got Africa, Asia, South America is over there. Oops, down this path you can see Expedition Ecuador there in the background. Our focus is of course Australasia. So we head down the ramp. Please excuse the higgledy-piggledy pathing you're about to see. It's a bit lumpy-bumpy. It probably needs smoothing out at some point. And we're going to head down, and you reach the directional signs and a mural that features statues of the animals that you will see in the Australasia section. So we've got the emu, the platypus, the Australian sea lion, the Tasmanian devil, the kiwi, the kangaroo, and there's a koala up there. And then of course the directional signs. Everything points to the left because the majority of things are in this direction. But we are going to start with the right. So the first habitat you will encounter is the emu and the red kangaroo. Probably two of the most iconic Australian animals that you can think of, besides the koala, of course, and the platypus. All females, so they're all female kangaroos and they're all female emus. This is the fourth habitat for emus and the third habitat for red kangaroos. So we had emus in East Lake, and then we had emus in the first version of Dunswell Zoo, and then when this version of Dunswell Zoo came along we had emus, and then this habitat's been more or less completely revamped, so this is their fourth habitat. And of course the same for the red kangaroos. We had them in the first version of Dunswell Zoo, we have them in this version, and then they've had the habitat revamp along with the emus. So there's plenty of viewing opportunities all the way around the habitat, which is something I was very keen on doing. So we've got food and enrichment back here. This area, they can navigate it should they so wish, but it's sort of designed so that the kangaroos can't jump out and guests can't put their arms over the fence to touch the emus and realise that they bite. So we'll just pick up the pace a little bit, and probably my favourite part about the habitat is this sort of lookout over the lake, and you can see the emus coming down to bathe and the kangaroos coming down to drink. It's just really, really cool, and I really like the viewing opportunities that it gives you. You can see the monorail passes overhead there. We're just gonna hop inside. Haha, hop. Because it's kangaroos. I'm so awkward. But yeah, so you have enough red kangaroos. I think we've got one below the maximum you can have, and we've got the maximum amount of emus as well. So if they're not all inside, you do get some good viewing opportunities. It does appear that most of them are unfortunately inside at the moment. So we'll just head on, oops, back out of here. Got some graphics to add here, of course. And then you come round, and if you ever see this at any point during the tour, the Gabion wall barrier, that's the boundary of the zoo. So you can see we've got the monorail and it's just getting planted out. And you've got a monorail at this side as well, and that will take you out into the zoo. And just as we've left there, we get the perfect viewing opportunity of an emu having a little drink. So that was the emu and red kangaroo habitat. Their indoor accommodation is offshore to the public. And then we hit the second habitat, which you guys won't have seen before, and that is the dingo habitat. Now, you have seen the original dingo habitat. This is the second version of that. So we added dingoes in this version of Dunswell Zoo. Their habitat has had a complete makeover, as you are about to see. So we've got dingo talk times. Talks takes place at 10 AM and 3 PM daily. Please note, dingo feeds do not always take place at the same time as the talks. This is done intentionally in order to better replicate the feeding habits the dingoes would encounter in the wild. So if you remember the previous dingo habitat, this was like a little corridor and there's some glass viewing at the front, and that was like sort of it. Well, now we've got a brand new swanky modern 180-degree viewing area. We'll call it an area. We have got pups, of course. They've got a new cave here. Behind this cave is actually access to the indoor area that's offshore for the dingoes. The same with this cave. They have access in there. If I can get the right angle, you might just be able to see something. Although I'm guessing perhaps I've built this a bit too well. Ah no, there we go. So this is where they would come out of. They've got the two caves there, and you can stand here and you can watch them run past you. You can watch them play in their pool. There's various bits of food enrichment all over the place. You get some really good views in here. And there is, of course, the educational talk and seating for that. Got some info stuff up there. Could maybe do with filling these blank spaces out a little bit more, but I'm not too bothered at the moment. And the guests would sit here and listen to the talks about how important dingo conservation is, particularly breeding and the pollution of the gene pool with domestic and feral dog populations. Pretty cool. I do like the dingoes. And we also shrank the wombat habitat just a smidge, and they've got this little outdoor nook, I guess you'd call it, where they can disappear. It's just sort of away from everything else, just because it's nice to have it. As you can see, you get some amazing views in here, and I'm really, really proud of this habitat actually, particularly the viewing area. It turned out pretty much exactly as I wanted it to. We might build something similar in the future for other animals. And then of course we have the Cosmic Cow and Gulpy guest amenities. Then you can just follow the dingo fence and it brings you to this wide area in the path. That's the slope we came down on. And this is the direction that everything was pointing. So we've got some more information here about the dingo fence in Australia. It's a really long fence to keep dingoes away from livestock, essentially. It's a hotly debated topic. Some people want it taken down, others think it would actually be detrimental to the dingoes because it would open them up to more breeding with feral dog populations, which is something we don't want. Personally, I think it should be taken down at some point. There's no need for it anymore, and the dingoes were there first, quite frankly. As we follow this path, you hit the Australia House. But just before you enter the Australia House, on the right, you follow this little barked path and you get the common wombat. So this is the second version of the common wombat habitat. The first version was in the... Oh, is that a baby? It's a baby wombat. No. Yeah, this is the second version of the common wombat habitat. The first version was in the initial version of Dunswell Zoo, and they shared it with the koalas. This was when the common wombats were mods based on the koala rig, and they could climb as well. Of course, we now have the common wombat thanks to the Twilight Pack, and they're adorable. So we have a male and a female. In fact, there's one there, and we obviously now have a baby as well, which is news to me. So the viewing opportunities can be a bit difficult outdoors just because it's so grassy, but this is what they like. There is this sort of area here where it's a bit more trodden and you can see them a bit better. But then the common wombats can get fairly close to you. So, I mean, this one's coming right towards me. Yeah, look at that. Hello, little buddy. No. Look at its little face. It's cute. Oh, it had a poo. That was its poo face. Wonderful. And the common wombat habitat actually continues inside the Australia House. So these are automatic doors and they open as you walk towards them. Same here. You do actually have a photo opportunity here with a saltwater crocodile statue. And then there's just seating. And then, pazam, we get into the Australia House. So it's a climate-controlled building. That's why we're able to grow native Australian plants here with great effect. And there are multiple different habitats within the Australia House. This is actually the second version of the Australia House. The first version was in the initial version of Dunswell Zoo, and this one is like twice the size and 10 times more impressive than that one was. It's actually, the shell is a modified version of the wetland dome that Rudy Rencamel built for the Wetlands DLC competition. I extended it and then made a few modifications and added a back because it was just too curved edges, whereas I wanted something straight at the end. So as most of the directions are pointing to the right, we're going to go left. So if you do go left, it's a little bit more relaxed. You know, there's a lot of this planting over on the left here. You could perhaps get a glance of some animals if you're lucky, but the best viewing for these animals are around the front. There's a couple of reasons why there's so much planting at this side. A, because there's no habitats at this side, and B, if we get birds in the future, there's definitely room to put like a kookaburra aviary or something like that in here. But for now it's just nice and planted and natural looking. And then we reach the first habitat. Well, you have a choice, you could go left or right here. I would definitely recommend going left, and we are going to go left into the yellow-footed rock-wallaby habitat. So this is the third version of the yellow-footed rock-wallaby habitat. We had one version in the initial version of Dunswell Zoo, then we had another version in this version of Dunswell Zoo, and then this habitat has had a complete makeover, making this their third habitat. No food or drink, don't touch the animals, don't call out to the animals, don't shout or scream. Please keep to the walkway at all times. So we're going to head on in. I'm going to go through these curtains here. And you're in. Simple as that. The yellow-footed rock-wallaby habitat. So this one's very sort of deserty, dry, arid sort of environments. Given that the rock-wallabies are rock-wallabies, excuse me, they do very well in this sort of environment. They can use this. If you saw that episode, you will remember the yellow-footed rock-wallabies jumping over the rocks. We got some really good footage of that. It's a very active habitat. They love it in here. I love it for them. It's great. So they've got these little caves that they can hide in, which is really nice. That's their only sort of indoor accommodation. Obviously the entire thing's technically indoors. And then if any of them need to be taken out for like medical treatment, the facilities for that are right next door. So nothing to worry about there. You can see here they're just sat underneath this forage feeder. Pretty cool. I like them. And this is just a bit more grassy at this side because they do require it, and it sort of makes a bit more sense because it's shaded over here, so it wouldn't be quite as dry and arid. Not sure what the curtains are doing, but okay. Then we're going to backtrack on ourselves just a little bit to this area, which is the platypus habitat, one of two. The platypus habitat you see now is technically the second version, although the first version was never built. There was planning put in place for the first version in the initial version of Dunswell Zoo. It never got built because I was waiting on the free build mod. And look at that, straight away, platypus. Just couldn't have timed that better. Wow. Yeah, so all the planning was in place and I drew it out, but this is a much better version. It's bigger than the other one was going to be. Not that they need all this space, it's worth pointing out. This is like massive for the platypus, but I'd rather give them more space because the focus here is on sort of conservation and breeding and getting these animals in a position where they can go back into the wild. So you want to recreate their habitat as authentically as possible. And then here you have the choice whether to carry on going straight ahead, and you can see that that's the Tasmanian devil habitat. Or we can go right and we can go downhill. We're going to go right. I don't know what's going on with these faux rock pieces. The textures are a bit smooth for some reason. It is the modded faux rock, so that might be why, but then all of these are also modded faux rock and they're fine. So I think it's just these pieces for some bizarre reason. And then we reach what I call the rib cage, which is these sort of wooden slats. We've got some vending machines just over at the back there. This little platypus statue thing, just to spruce the area up. Got some seating. And if you're lucky, you might also get a view of the platypus. And it seems we are very lucky today. So there's actually 3 platypus in this habitat, a male and 2 females. They're retired from the breeding program. They've done their part, so they get to live out the rest of their lives in here. And they absolutely love it. But you can head further down and go right to the bottom of the pool and get some better shots. Unfortunately, because of the way the sun is at the moment, it does sort of make viewing a little bit difficult. But that's because it's the height of midday, so there's nothing we can do about that. And then just behind us here we have some toilets. And the reason why there's toilets and sort of food and drink and seating is because there's actually an educational talk down here. And if you wanted to wait around for that, that's what those facilities are there for. And then in here we have our breeding pool for the platypus. Again, 1 male, 2 females in here. But this one differs not only in design, but your underwater viewing is completely underwater. Your only cross section sort of here. And it's a lot clearer. And that's because, although it's not necessarily natural for the platypus, this is the educational habitat. This is where you'll be able to see them swimming, see them entering the water, see how they behave, things like that. Whereas the other one's a little bit murkier. That's a bit more natural, that habitat. It's a retirement home, the other one, so it's a little bit more natural. But this one's like crystal clear water. And unfortunately we've not been that lucky with this one. It doesn't seem there's any platypus coming out to play. So we shall carry on with our tour and come out the other end of this tunnel. And that brings us to the end of the Tasmanian devil habitats. Got one there and one there, so we'll backtrack a little bit. So these 2 habitats are going to get a little bit of a revamp, a new sort of landscaping style, some new planting, better viewing opportunities as well, because the viewing opportunities, particularly in this one, aren't great at all. You know, most of the habitat is blocked by this cave structure, so we need to do something about that. And this is the breeding habitat. You can see them all. Just saw 2 at the back here. There we go, there's one. So yeah, these 2 Tasmanian devil habitats, they will be getting sort of a fresh take, if you like. And then this one is for just females that have been retired from the breeding program, and they live out the rest of their lives in this habitat. Very different. The other one's sort of dry and scrublandy. This one's sort of lush tropical forests, just to represent the habitats that Tasmanian devils can be found in. I'm not seeing any at the moment. The gate needs changing on this one, I know that much, because if you put your arms over here, oh there's one, if you put your arms over here, you would probably get bitten. So it's a safety feature to have the taller habitat gate. Yeah, just once these females have passed away, this habitat will be getting a little bit of a makeover. Not too much, I do quite like this one. But this habitat in particular, the scrublandy deserty one, that one will be getting quite a major makeover. We'll see what we can do to make things interesting. So then we get to another choice. You can either go left or right here. And we're going to go right. And we're going to see the indoor accommodation for the LUMHOLTZ'S tree kangaroo. So this is our female enclosure. In fact, there's one coming in now. We're incredibly lucky to be able to see them because they're very, very secretive animals. So we have a female enclosure, a breeding enclosure stroke nursery compound, and then we also have the male enclosure in that order. So we have the females at this end, the breeding compound or the nursery compound in the middle. There might be something in here, I'm not 100% sure. And then this one is the males, of which we have two at the moment. We have an older male and a young male. The older male is no longer part of the breeding program. They're over there, I think. I just saw some movement on the eucalyptus feeder. There we go. Oh. Yeah, we have a younger male and an older male. And then just behind us here, we have some viewing for the platypus, and you can actually see them on land here. This one's having a little trundle up this sandy bank. And that one's in the water down there. I think that one might be a baby. But we shall continue with our tour. Time is of the essence. So you do get some quite good views of the tree kangaroos here. The LUMHOLTZ'S tree kangaroos, of course. And then we're back, of course, at that wombat habitat from earlier on. And again, we're very lucky. The baby, and then the male and the female. Interestingly, the female was actually born here in Dunswell Zoo in this version, and unfortunately when her parents passed, she was just left on her own. So rather than moving her onto another zoo, we decided to keep her here and bring a male in, and they've obviously had their own little baby wombats, or a singular wombat. So here's our two tree kangaroos. Two males, and their indoor viewing is just here. And then behind them is the monarch butterflies. Now it might not look like there's many in here, but it is actually at full capacity. And they're in a greenhouse within a greenhouse, simply because it's a walk-through habitat, and to have it look like they were free-flying around the entire Australia house, it would need quite a few walk-through habitats, and walk-through exhibits, sorry, and that takes up quite a lot of room. So they're just in a greenhouse within a greenhouse. It just keeps things nice and simple. Keep them temperature controlled. You're able to contain them within here. So it's easier to count them, easy to do catches and releases and things like that. And yeah, they are found in Australia. I don't think it shows on the map here, but they are found in Australia. They are endangered. You've got some great opportunities to see them. So there's the feeder up there. There's some plants down here. Some more plants down here. You got the little feeding stations. And then the houses, which they seem to absolutely love because they're everywhere. And then the flowers. So yeah, they're doing really well in here. It's a self-sufficient, self-contained thing. Now this greenhouse, it's actually from part of a kit by Lady Designer, or the Lady Designer, there we go, the Lady Designer. The roof doesn't match up completely, but I'm not too bothered about that, to be honest. It's alright, you know. And then we continue our tour, and we have the Victorian koalas here somewhere, he says. So very sort of dry and arid looking habitat. And this is the male enclosure, and then we have the females next to that. I can see a koala. So we have one here. Not a clue what he's doing. He seems to be going inside the tree, and you can actually see one of the females in the background. Yeah, we used to have 3 males in here, but I think there's just the one now. So we'll see what's available to be transferred, get the breeding program started again, because they are vulnerable, of course. And then over on the right here, we have the southern hairy-nosed wombat. We have 2 pairs. There's 1. There's 2. We're very lucky in this tour, man. And then at the other side, again, there's another 2. I don't think we're going to be that lucky with this one, though. And then, of course, we have our female Victorian koalas. Their habitat's a little bit bigger than the male one, just because A, there are more females, and B, there would also be the young in here when the females get pregnant. So this one's just a little bit bigger. Now I need to try and find. There's one. Any others? I don't think they've died off yet. Surely not. Well, I can't see them, but anyway, there's at least one. And then we're just going to race back before we continue the tour, because just over here we have the giant burrowing cockroach. Ignore the keeper, who's managed to stand in the sign. There's an educational talk that takes place regarding the giant burrowing cockroaches and their importance to maintaining the health of eucalyptus forests. So there's 2 down here. I think we have 6 in total. but good luck finding them. And then you head this way, and there's the monorail, and the back of the wombat habitat. So you go up there to the monorail. You do also have some viewing here for the southern hairy-nosed wombats. And then that is the exit from the monorail. And then we hit the Queensland koalas. Of course, this is the second version of the Queensland koalas habitat. They had one habitat with the initial version of Dunswell Zoo, and now they've got this one. So there should be 2 males. Then again, good luck finding them. That's a good thing though, that you can't always find them straight away. Shows that they're happy, that they're displaying natural behaviours. But we won't linger too long if we... Oh, there we go. There's one, and there's 2. There are 2 males in here. We have paused the breeding programme for the time being for the Queensland koalas, sorry. This is the back view of that other southern hairy-nosed wombat habitat. Try saying that 5 times fast. Southern hairy-nosed wombat habitat, southern hairy-nosed wombat habitat, southern hairy-nosed wombat habitat. And then we have our 4 elderly females in here. So we have 1, and I can't spot the others. 1 out of 4 is not too bad. Anyway, they're in there. Yep, a little bit of lag there. And then of course we reach this area. And we're just going to backtrack on ourselves ever so slightly. Because you have the NUMBAT habitat, which is the 3rd version. We had the initial version in the initial version of Dunswell Zoo. Then we've had a version in here, and then the habitat got split into 2 and a complete overhaul, and this is what they have now. They're very sort of shy and secretive animals, so we've played into that with sort of the planting. But if you don't see them in that habitat, you do have another opportunity to see them in this habitat here, which is a little bit more open. And there's absolutely no sign of them. I guess we're not so lucky after all. But then behind us we have the outdoor viewing. I say outdoor, we're under a dome. But the outside viewing for the female LUMHOLTZ'S tree kangaroos. And again, we're quite lucky with the tree kangaroos. We're getting some good views of them today. So it's very lush, very heavily planted, very sort of naturalistic, and the idea is that they could be anywhere. So they can traverse on the ground if they want to, they can be on the beams, they could be in any of the trees, including this one at the back here. That is a climbable tree for the tree kangaroos. And then of course you get to the end of your walk through the Australia house and you reach A Night Down Under, which is a fairly recent build on the channel, probably only a month or so old at this point. I apologise if you can hear any children screaming or any DIY. There is nothing I can do about that. The children are off on their school holidays. Not my children. Don't have children. Don't like children. My neighbour's children, and they're annoying. And the DIY is a couple of neighbours down, and they're like drilling and sawing and angle grinding and things like that. Anyway, I digress. A Night Down Under would be your next tour. Your next part of your tour. So, without any further delay, let's get into A Night Down Under. Let's head on in to our Australasian nocturnal house. So you come through these doors and let your eyes adjust. Welcome to A Night Down Under. You've got your Dunswell Zoo is proud to work with these organisations across Australia and New Zealand. And of course we head in. And it seems very sort of nightclub-esque at the moment. Don't worry about that. The lighting's quite appropriate. So you've got Gecko by John Smith Gumbula. You've got your rules. No flash photography, no torches, do not bang or tap on the glass, close all doors behind you after entering a new area because they all have different lighting levels. Please keep all noise to an absolute minimum, and children must be supervised at all times. And the first hall that we go into is the Outback at Dusk. Ignore the pixeling thing, I don't know what that is, but so... Okay, so we have the greater bilby, 2 habitats for them. This is the 3rd version of their habitat. So they had a version in the initial version of Dunswell Zoo, they had a version in this version of Dunswell Zoo, and then it's had a complete overhaul, essentially. So they've got new landscaping, new rocks, new everything. So we actually do get to see the greater bilbies. The keepers have just gone in and they've just filled up that little mound for them. So there's one. Judging by the size, I reckon that's probably the female. The male is a little bit bigger. We also get lots of information. The greater bilby hanging on by a thread. Climate change, global warming, red fox, feral cats, feral dogs, European rabbits, domestic cattle, and the dromedary camel, deforestation and tree clearing are all major threats against the greater bilby. Got a little art sort of drawing thing. Pretty cute, quite like it. If you want to be a bilby adopter, let me know. I'll put your name on the bilby board. And then this habitat at the end also has 2 greater bilbies. The lighting does make it a little bit difficult. There's a bit of glare on the glass. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do in the game to reduce the glare. So we just have to deal with it. And there's no sign of the bilbies in that habitat. But your next one is the Twilight Grove. So you would come through, and this house is the Eastern Quoll. So we've got our different quolls of the world. Northern Quoll, Western Quoll, Eastern Quoll, Tiger Quoll, Bronze Quoll, New Guinea Quoll. We have the Eastern Quoll here. And again, you've got your education, so saving the Eastern Quoll. Saving the Eastern Quoll. So feral cats, red foxes and dogs, and environmental hazards. 2 little art sort of things here. There's an educational talk, so you can sit on these benches and listen to the talk, or you can place yourselves in front of either of the windows, and you are pretty much guaranteed to get a sight of these cute but small little critters. Probably a bit too small, if I'm being honest. They do have two colour morphs. They have this golden coat and they have the black coat, both with white spots. This habitat is designed to be a little bit more naturalistic, with more planting and leaf litter and things like that. Whereas the one on the left is designed to be a little bit more sort of open, showcases the abilities of the quoll. It's more typical of a zoo, if you like. So you can see here there's a lot less planting, this climbing structure, and the forage takes centre stage. And you can see there's one up here. There's some down here. I think they're probably babies them. So lots of breeding success. And yeah, again, the lighting can make it a bit difficult with the glare, but there's not a lot we can do about that. It's not too bad, to be fair. You might think, because it's blue lighting on the inside, that it's going to be quite cold. It's not. It's a temperature controlled building. It's quite warm. The blue lighting is just because that lighting works better in some nocturnal species than the red lighting does, for example. Then we've got quoll adopters. So our quoll adopters so far are Christy Sank, Aubrey Chaston, Samuel Edwards, Andrew Norman, Nancy Jones, Bernie Goodwin, and Quoll Headquarters. Your name could also be there, so let me know if you want to be a quoll adopter as well. Eastern quoll, and then saving the eastern quoll. Then we hit our next section, which is the kiwi forest. Technically, this is the second version of the kiwi habitat, but the first version was never fully finished. It was just sort of egg-shaped, and we never got to put in the planting in or anything like that, or even the kiwis. So technically it's a second version. But yeah, North Island brown kiwi. Both are very naturalistic habitats. Both are well planted. One slightly more so than the other. This one's the more open of the two. You can see a kiwi here. Both pairs have had chicks. Those chicks have now been sent off to other collections. And then this one is the more heavily planted of the two. And if we can see any kiwis, I think there's one stood in the back there. Coming out, yep. Oh, and there's one. Oh, that was a baby, and this is an adult, and that's an adult. So we've still got another chick. I thought we'd sent them both off. But essentially what you get are some really good viewing opportunities of what is quite a rare bird. Not just in the wild, but in captivity as well. Look at this, just less than a metre away from you. Oh, I love that sort of experience about zoos. And of course we've got all our kiwi education, how we're saving the kiwi, North Island brown kiwi, so advocacy, Operation Nest Egg, and invasive species and pest control. And then we've got our different kiwis of New Zealand. So you've got your great spotted kiwi, your Okarito brown kiwi, southern brown kiwi, North Island brown kiwi, and the little spotted kiwi. You've also got cafe kiwi, where you can stop for a bite to eat, something to drink, just relax, enjoy the chilled sort of evening vibes that this place gives you before continuing with your tour. We've got these two sort of planters in the middle with kiwi statues all the way around. There's sort of different viewing and photo opportunities for you. This is a particularly good one. So you've got two here, two there. Around the front here. You can stand, and you've got like a kiwi over each shoulder. Got this one down at the front here. And then at this side you've got kiwis. Here's another good viewing and photo opportunity. You've got another one here, and there's some more on the front. But then at this side you've got your reintroduction and rewilding in Australia. So we've got the dingo, flying squirrel, koala, echidna, wombat, platypus, eastern quolls again, and brush-tailed bettongs. Conservation in New Zealand, North Island brown kiwi, South Island TAKAHE. Invasive animals contribution to species extinction in Australia. Australia's bushfires. And then we've got some toilets as well, just because obviously we've got a cafe and sort of halfway around the tour. Next up then is the Sunset Hall. It's got this sort of orangey, yellowy lighting. And in here we've got the Eastern brown snake. Again, we've been very lucky in this tour because they're both here. We've got two. Then next door to them we've got the Eastern blue-tongued lizard, or the Eastern blue-tongued skink if you're so inclined. I jinxed it by saying we were being lucky. Yeah, I can't see them. And then this last one we've got the common death adder. We've got one right here. And Lord knows where the other one is. And then we have the main attraction of the Sunset Hall. And that is the brush-tailed bettongs, which are sort of at guest eye level because they're so small. By far my favourite piece of education that I've ever made so far is Where's Woylie? The brush-tailed bettongs, also known as woylie, is a species of bettong which has been exterminated from almost all of its historical range over the last 150 years. Remnant populations have crashed in the last 2 decades. Dunswell Zoo in the AWC protects almost 10% of the world's remaining brush-tailed bettong population, with important populations living in feral predator-free areas at our Karakamia, Scotia, Yucumurra, Mount Gibson and New Haven wildlife sanctuaries. And you can see where those are by following the key here. And of course we've got brush-tailed bettong, bettongs of the world, northern bettong, burrowing bettong, brush-tailed bettong, eastern bettong and rufous bettong. Another little art painting thing. And then here, if you're lucky, you might be able to see the brush-tailed bettong. They are very small and very quick. They are both breeding groups, but apparently not playing the ball today. And you've got snakes and skinks, the risk factor. So although there is a ton, sorry, not a ton, although there is a ban on trading and exporting native reptiles, the eastern blue-tongue lizard is a very popular lizard to trade due to its unique tongue colour. There are signs of stable populations, whereas its sister species, the northern blue-tongue, appears to have a population that's declining. The eastern blue-tongue faces threats from garden poisons, dogs, cats, traffic, and natural predators such as the kookaburra and the eastern brown snake. Speaking of eastern brown snake, they're abundant and not considered endangered. They have adapted well to human settlement, learning to hunt introduced rats and mice around farms, so actually play a significant role in controlling the numbers of these pests. Like all Australian snakes, they are protected by law. The venom of the eastern brown snake is the second most toxic of all the snake venoms in the world, next to only that of the inland taipan. And you have your death adder, which is threatened by loss of habitat, but more of a threat is the introduced and highly invasive cane toad. Young death adders are eaten by these toads. Adult death adders are often fatally poisoned by the toxic glands in a cane toad's skin when they eat these amphibians. Unlike most Australian venomous snakes that actively search for prey, the common death adder, just walk in front of my education cleaner, that's fine. The common death adder sits in one place and waits for prey to come to it. The venom of all death adders is potentially fatal to humans, and before antivenom was developed, more than half of people bitten would die. Let's just have a quick glance back. Have they come out whilst we've had our backs turned? Possibly. Is that one? Yeah, on that rock there. That is a brush-tailed bettong. So this is also their second habitat version, sort of. The first one never got built. The sort of footprint was set out and laid out, and the plans were drawn up, but I never went ahead and built it. They were going to be in a walk-through enclosure, but they're just too small. So they're in a little bit more of a safe environment. Got your education talk, of course, and some more education down here. And this is the other sort of habitat that you would have found them in before they were exterminated from the majority of their regions. So this sort of edge of a forest sort of habitat, and we can actually get a better view in this habitat. We've got two down here. There was one near the food dish, just there. And there's another one, I think, although that could be the same one from the angle. But yeah, they're very, very small and very, very quick. Which, of course, then leads us to the end of the nocturnal house, the Australasian nocturnal house anyway, A Night Down Under. And we shall continue with our Australasian tour. So as we leave the Night Down Under, we get a very different aesthetic. We have the food court straight in front of us. We have the TAKAHE trail to the left. We have the monorail to the right, and that also takes you down to two other habitats. First up, you have this sort of little information thing, which is just odd, really. It's nothing particularly themed. So Dunswell Zoo is proud to commit to a 100% green and renewable, nature-friendly future. The zoo is completely powered by renewable energy in the form of solar, wind and thermal power. Around 80% of the roof of A Night Down Under is covered with giant solar panels that generate electricity in tandem with other solar stations around the zoo that we can use for a range of activities such as powering the lights in the nocturnal houses, powering stores and cafes, running waterfalls, running the monorail, and powering electric fences, to name just a few uses. In addition to the solar array on the roof, A night down under has a special heat capturing technology that pulls warm air from under the solar panels and draws it into the building to be distributed to habitats and into the Australia house. If the temperature needs to drop, the warm air is expelled from the building and air conditioning units circulate cooler air into the habitats and indoor guest areas. 20% of the roof of a night down under is covered in a grassed roof garden specially designed for native birds and insects to use, and a vital habitat in the fight against habitat loss. These layers of planting act as a natural insulator to the building, keeping it warm, keeping the warmth in and the cool air out, and vice versa. Rainwater and dirty habitat water is also recycled and used across the zoo for horticulture and agriculture. Pretty nifty, eh? And then you've got giant versions of solar panels just like this one. Cover the roofs of our flat buildings, such as the night down under. Solar energy is renewable and clean, which makes it a great source of electricity to power the zoo with. And if you're so inclined, you can read some of the information and education, little staff area, and again, the zoo boundary. There's some seating down here as well. Then we'll head over to the left to the TAKAHE trail, and we should be really lucky actually because they've had chicks. So, shh, our TAKAHE are shy. So we've got our TAKAHE in here, and you can actually see there's one. I believe that's the adult. It's definitely a adult. There's 2 adults and 1 chick in this one, and 3 chicks in the next one. So the first habitat is a breeding pair. There's one of the chicks, or the one chick, what they had. The second habitat is again just a breeding pair. And the third habitat is to raise chicks. So it's specifically to sort of semi-rewild the chicks so that they can be released into sanctuaries and the wild in New Zealand. This is what I mean when I said earlier on that it's mostly finished. It's just little details like this what need doing. But I shall do it before the next episode. So you stand a better chance of seeing the TAKAHE in this one at the moment, because obviously there's the 2 adults and 3 chicks. I think they've got an adult, and a chick. But there's definitely some more in here. And then of course the final habitat, well the final zone I guess, the TAKAHE habitat. This is just for chicks that are at that stage where they can be taken away from their parents and they can be taught how to be wild. So they have to forage for their food in here. They don't have the option of a dish like they do in the other habitats, and the guest viewing is a little bit more limited. You know, it's smaller windows, it's more broken up. And then you can come out here, and this will take you into the Africa section. And then you've got your food court here. So we'll enter from the back. Leave it. So you've got the restaurant, which is the Boomerang. So we'll head in there first. You enter the Boomerang, and you go to take your seating, and there you go. All the seating is outside for the Boomerang, and it overlooks the wallaby walkabout habitat, where we have our swamp wallabies and our Bennett'S wallabies, or our red-necked wallabies. we'll get onto that habitat shortly. There's some sort of implied seating in here because this is just empty space, but the actual seating is outside, so if it rains I can't expect the restaurant would be particularly busy. Unlike the food court, which we're going to now, because the majority of the seating is actually covered in the food court. So the food court, this is the second version of the food court. The initial version was, of course, in the initial version of Dunswell Zoo. And this just features all the food and drink outlets and loony balloons in the game. Our conservation station's also in here. It was going to be its own little building, but I couldn't fit it in. So it's in here instead. And you know, there's talks, tours and experiences. The animals that you can adopt and the cost of the adoption packages, as well as other things that you can do. So the sea lion experience, the wallaby experience, the koala experience, things like that. And these are prices per person. Toilets are in here. You've got some cash machines just around the corner and a security camera so no one steals your bank details. More food and drink. This is sort of your desserts corridor. Ice cream, you've got slush, and you've got Benny's Bakes. You've got your coffee, you've got your Missy Good, and then you've got another entrance here with the TAKAHE. You've got your Gulpy water, like Pip Shop water, sorry, your Mexalente, and then Gulpy energy just at the end. You've got your outdoor seating. These are under parasols, and then the parasols are a bit different over there. These are under a big sunshade, and you've got 2 ramps to go up. And there's seating up here as well on these decks. So these overlook the wallaby habitat as well. There's some indoor seating that's a bit different. It's a bit more relaxed, this one. Different style of benches, different viewing. It's indoor viewing. You can see the wallabies from here. Then we go past the planter, and you've got some more viewing, more seating, sorry. And then the outdoor, but still under the cover viewing out here, lets you view the monorail and the people trundling by. This one, same sort of design, lets you view the people trundling by, and also the TAKAHE, which you can see there. Then the next one across is a little bit different again. So this is sort of recessed and it's outdoors. Oops, don't know what happened there. And then this one, got some toilets at the end, so you don't have to walk all the way down there for toilets. And got this little sort of seating nook in here, and then some more outdoor seating. This one, you don't see as much of the TAKAHE. You've got the people coming in and out of the Africa section. Maybe at this table if you're lucky. You can see one there. So that's the food court. So we'll head back down if I can figure out. Sure, cool. And then we'll head to the Wallaby Walkabout, which is a very recent build. It was only a few weeks ago at the time of recording this. Got the toilets and the wallaby walkabout. So this is the third version of the wallaby walkabout habitat. So the first version was in the East Lake Animal Education Centre. The second version was in Dunswell Zoo, in the first version of Dunswell Zoo, and the second version is this habitat that we're in now. So 3 versions in total. Need to lower that log a little bit, it's a bit high. But yeah, you come down this lovely barked sort of path, and you can either go left or right. We're going to go right, and you can see the wallabies. There is a talk that takes place in here. It probably gets quite crowded though. We've got the red-necked wallabies here, these two. I think this one's a swamp wallaby. What's down here? That's also a red-necked wallaby. They have a drink. It's circulated water, so it's nice and filtered. And I think that's a redneck as well. Yeah, I thought it might have been swamp wallaby. Ah, okay, they've just been fed. That's why they're all active. This is a swamp wallaby. Let's hop in by now. It's much smaller and has like little black markings on its face. A little bit like a mask. These two are swamp wallabies. Yeah, you've got your little information centre. So do not call out or attempt to touch the wallabies. Keep all noise to an absolute minimum, as these animals spook easily. Stick to the paths at all times. No flash photography and no eating in this habitat. There's a swamp wallaby. So the swamp wallabies are a bit smaller than the Bennett's wallabies or the red-necked wallabies, and they've got a lovely, nice big habitat to explore. And so we get onto the final habitat in the Australasia section, and the final habitat of this tour. So we have TARCOOLA Bay, which is the most recent build, and it is our Australian sea lion habitat. So there's 2 ways to enter. There's up this ramp here, or you can just walk through there. We're going to go up the ramp to start with. It's a nice sort of light, gravelly, stony texture, very reminiscent of a beach. And then you're brought up, and the first thing you see is your education, which sort of blocks the view a little bit, but it makes sense because you're then inclined to walk left or walk right to get a better view. We're going to go left and see if we can spot any of our 6 Australian sea lions. So we'll start with a house, because there's usually at least 1 or 2 in there. Doesn't look like there's anything today. There's a sea lion. There's another one. There's another one. There's another one. They're all showing up now. So we then walk along here, and we come down this ramp. And you're then brought to your next view, where you can see the sea lions relatively close. I mean, they can come right up here, essentially. And then hopefully we don't glitch through the path here. So I'm going to walk on the wall. We've got meet our sea lions. So Javier, Willow, Sophie, Dolores, Emma and Harry. They are expecting. We have some pups on the way. So The first female will be named Aubrey. The first male will be named Andrew, after Aubrey Chaston and Andrew Norman. So this area is the educational amphitheatre. So we've got our seating and the talks, and the idea is that the educator would be able to throw sort of food onto this platform, and the sea lions would go on there and eat them as the talk's taking place. Unfortunately, this barrier needs moving down a little bit, but the sea lions can't actually get on here, despite the fact it's the same as the water level. They can't get on there. I think it's to do with the barriers in the game. So we'll walk around. The path's a bit glitchy because there's paths underneath here. So, excuse me while I get myself unstuck. There we go. So you can see we have the underwater view into the right, and then the educational amphitheatre to the left, and there's daily talks that take place at 1 PM. So we'll now head underwater and try not to glitch through the ground. So this turned out pretty much exactly as I wanted it. The only thing what didn't is how to access the underground area, the underwater viewing. It's the only thing what didn't turn out exactly as I'd drawn it out. But you can see the sea lions absolutely love it in the water. You get some amazing views. Yeah, look at that. Oh wow. And there is education and donation at either side. And then we head down the stairs. There's Frank. Hi Frank. And we have a massive underwater viewing gallery. So you've got the Australian sea lion facts over on the left, donation and education. You've got Australian sea lion research over on the right. You've got some benches if you just want to sit here and watch the sea lions. It's also connected to the talk upstairs, so you'll be able to listen through speakers down here. And there's a photo opportunity here, where you can get your picture taken in front of the golden sea lion statue and a seagull. But you get a really nice view of the sea lions underwater here. They do swim through this arch. There's a fish dispenser here. So they really are the star attraction of the Australasia section. But that brings us to the end of this guided tour of the Australasia section. Thank you for watching. Please remember to hit that like button if you have indeed liked this video. Please remember to hit subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and indeed more Planet Zoo content. We've just passed 200 subscribers, so thank you very much for that. If you've been here from day one, or if you're a recent subscriber, thank you. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at JW_YT. And I shall see you in possibly about 2 weeks after this video goes live for the giant otter habitat. We're returning to South America for a little while, and we'll flesh out that area a little bit more with some pretty big builds actually. We've got the Jaguar complex, Reptiles at Risk, and the Penguins of Patagonia, I think it is, or Penguin Coast, something like that. They're all really big builds, so I shall see you all for that. Thank you for watching. Until the next time, my friends, stay safe, stay kind, and bye-bye for now.